and then I don't know where to look. But hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Tina Baker with Youre Safe With Me, here with Attorney Lorenzo Banks. I am so glad that you are here joining us. It is actually 12 o'clock now, and so we will begin this broadcast. Attorney Banks, thank you for joining us with Youre Safe With Us. I'm just so excited to have you a part of this broadcast and just to hear your perspective on the case of Derek Chauvin. And so what advice you would like to share, and what is your perspective on these things? And you don't have to answer now. I just still want to kind of give people some time to come in. Just want to get your background and all of that good information as well.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah. Now, Tina, thank you guys for having me. I've had a great time on this program once before. I was with Lucretia not too long ago. So I'm excited to be here with Youre Safe With Me and doing another interview with you all on just a little bit different topics. So to give people time to get into the room, let me just go ahead and start off with an introduction of myself. My name is Lorenzo Banks. I am an attorney here in Oklahoma City, and I do lots of work in the community as well. In particular, dealing with individuals when it comes to education of knowing your rights. I do this talk all around the country about what it is to know your rights, what your rights are and what your rights are not when it comes to police officer encounters with civilians. And so I'm also known as the superhero lawyer here in Oklahoma City. Every lawyer has their tagline because I believe that as a lawyer, I am bestowed with certain powers. And it is my duty, it is incumbent upon me to use my powers for the benefit of mankind. And I use that power, the power and the knowledge that comes along with having a bar license, to help other individuals in the community, in particular, not only in the courtroom, but in the community at large. Part of that being my Know Your Rights talks, where I help people with learning this information that may very well save their lives in a particular police encounter. So that's who I am, and I've been doing that for goodness. Who knew that when I started doing my Know Your Rights, the do's and don'ts of police stops? Who knew that 8-9 years ago when I started doing that? Who knew that 8-9 years later it would be so relevant and it would be so pointed at the status of police and civilian relations here and race relations here in the United States. So forgive me, Tina, I'm just talking. You know, I'm a trial lawyer. I can't help it. So
it's okay.
Because I'll just keep going. But hopefully, and you also, Tina, you got to watch lawyers, because we will give long answers to short questions. So forgive me for that. I do not want to filibuster this conversation, considering we only have a certain amount of time allotted for this interview. But yeah, that's me. That's Lorenzo Banks, and I'm happy to be here. So glad to be here with you, Tina, and happy to all those folks out there on Facebook Live. Hopefully you guys are tuning in. I'd love to see you guys in person one day.
Well, thank you. First of all, we thank you for stepping out there and getting licensed and certified to be an attorney to help out in the community, because we definitely need it in these times. And so I appreciate you, and I give you honor, and your flowers to you because I know
you're so sweet.
in our community. And so I am saying that I am grateful, and I honor you, and I thank you for being a voice for our community. And so keep up the great work, because I know and believe God is going to use you here in the near future. And so but to move further on in this interview, we know that the sentencing will be coming up here pretty soon for, and I still want to call him Officer Derek Chauvin, and I might be butchering his last name, but that deliberation, I believe, only took a couple of hours. Is that something that typically happens in
Mhm.
cases like this?
So that's a very good question, Tina. So, and of course, me being the trial lawyer that I am, I gave a very long answer to your short question before, and then failed to go into much more detail about myself. So one of the things that I do is, as a lawyer here in Oklahoma City, I am a part owner of a law firm here, Banks Gillette, and you may have kind of put two and two together. I'm the Banks in Banks Gillette. I'm one of the partners. Yeah. So that's my firm. And one of the things that we do is criminal defense work. Any seasoned criminal defense lawyer will tell you that most of the time when juries are out for a long time, that means you've done your job as a criminal defense attorney. If you represent somebody who is on trial for something and you end up, it goes to jury, it goes to the deliberations, and it takes a long time for that jury to come back with their decision. Good job, counsel. Not to say that short jury verdicts is indicative that the defense attorney didn't do his or her job. I'm not saying that, but it's certainly high marks to folks when that jury is out for a long time. That means that you made those jurors think. Well done, counsel. And that's something that I strive for as a defense attorney who goes to trial. So let's talk about the Derek. Now, and Tina, if you're butchering this man's name, then I'm going to probably be doing it too, because I was under the impression that his last name was Chauvin. However, if it is not, we all know what we're talking about here. We all know the trial, right? We all know this is the
But we know his
officer.
first name, so at least we
Yes,
get that
ma'am.
right.
Yes, ma'am. I believe it's Derek Chauvin, but if we're wrong, we're just going to be wrong together, Ms. Baker. So this jury in the Derek Chauvin trial was out for approximately 10 hours. In the grand scheme of things, for a murder case, that's a relatively short amount of time. As a defense attorney, I get nervous if after a few hours that jury comes back, right? Typically, the longer that jury is out, that means the more that they're looking at the evidence and the more doubt that has been raised in the minds of those jurors. Because remember, the only way that someone may be convicted of a crime, it must be done, it must be proven beyond any reasonable doubt. So when they're out for a long time, that means there must be a whole lot of doubt there because they're still looking at evidence. They're looking through things. 10 hours on a second-degree murder charge. That's rather short, and it's telling. And so if I can only imagine what was going through the minds of those defense attorneys while they were waiting on the deliberations, and then to hear, oh, they have a verdict after only 10 hours. It makes your heart sink. So yes, it's actually relatively short for murder deliberation. And it was telling because clearly it came back, the jury came back and convicted Mr. Chauvin on all three counts.
Okay, and I want those accounts that he was convicted of. I heard one of the interviews from one of the jurors that the reason why they were kind of still going back and forth is because one of the jurors didn't feel like manslaughter should have been one of the convictions or one of the charges that was placed against him. And I kind of looked up that information as far as manslaughter. It kind of had to do with like premeditated murder, or that was something that was planned. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit about that? Because, you know, that was something that is like, did that police officer intentionally go out there planning to kill someone on that day? He had in his mind that, hey, today is going to be the day that I kill George Floyd. And
right.
Can you kind of elaborate a little bit with that?
And so when we're talking about, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, see, because when it comes to crimes, it is important that you have to go off of the definition of each state, right? Each state may have a little bit of a twist of what a certain crime, in terms of the definition of a certain crimes in their state. If my memory serves me correctly, that second-degree murder in the state of Minnesota, because this is where this happened, right? This happened in Minnesota. Second-degree murder has to be done where it's an intentional killing, but there was no premeditation. And so what we're talking about here is essentially the prosecution was able to prove that Mr. Chauvin, in fact, killed George Floyd without premeditating. He wasn't thinking about it before. He didn't have some elaborate scheme to go out and commit this crime. However, he did intentionally, according to the jury. It was beyond any reasonable doubt that Derek Chauvin intentionally, without premeditation, killed George Floyd. It's because of things like this that, it's always incumbent upon people. You've got to know the definitions. And so they say, oh, that's murder. Well, it may not be in Minnesota. It may not be in Florida, right? It may be something very different. But I think that's where the differentiation was and where there was some confusion with the jury. Then clearly, after, they thought that it shouldn't be that there shouldn't be a manslaughter charge. And here we are now. The jury comes back, because remember, it has to be unanimous. The jury comes back and convicts him of all 3 counts, right? And so that's it. I'm assuming, my assumption is that they were able to figure it out that, okay, no, this does apply. Because I believe the counts were 2nd-degree murder, 3rd-degree murder, and 2nd-degree manslaughter, if my memory serves me correctly. And so based off that, now Mr. Chauvin is looking at, and so I've been reading things where people are saying that Mr. Chauvin is looking at a potential of 40 years in prison.
Okay, yes.
And I don't know Minnesota law because, as you know, I am licensed in the great state of Oklahoma, right? But typically, what ends up happening is when you get certain counts, when you have different counts, right? Because we're talking 2nd-degree murder, we're talking 3rd-degree murder, we're talking 2nd-degree manslaughter. And if my memory serves me correctly, in Minnesota, 2nd-degree murder carries up to 40 years, right? 3rd-degree murder carries up to 25 years. And 2nd-degree manslaughter carries up to 10 years. Typically, for each of those counts in many states, is that you can be charged with those counts. And if you're convicted of those counts, they can end up being running CC or concurrently. So in other words, that no matter what you get on count 1, it's going to run concurrent with count 2 and count 3. So for example, I'm just going to throw this out here. Let's say on that 2nd-degree murder charge, when the judge sentences him, that he gets 10 years. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not saying that's likely to happen. I'm just giving an example. Okay, let's just say the judge gives him 10 years.
Probably, with that statement just there, you probably pissed off a lot of people.
I'm sure I did. 10
years, like, no, that dude need to go up under the jail. 10 years.
I know. I already know. That's
probably filing on paper, and then the rest he just chill out at home. No, but you want 10 years. Like
right. Which is why I was saying, hey, this is an example. Relax, everybody out there on Facebook Live. I'm not saying he should get this or he will get this. This is purely a hypothetical. Let's say on the 2nd-degree murder case, he gets 10 years, hypothetically. Let's say that the judge on the 3rd-degree murder charge gives him 5 years. And let's say on the 2nd-degree manslaughter charge that the judge gives him 2 years. So we're talking 10, 5, and 2. If the judge runs them concurrently, the most Mr. Chauvin is going to serve time is for 10 years, because the 10, the 5, and the 2 are running concurrently at the same time. Does that make sense? So it's one of those things of they run at the same time so that he doesn't get those counts stacked up on top of each other. Now, that's running concurrently. If they run consecutively, that's what we call in the criminal defense world stacking. So going back to my hypothetical, if you've got the 10-year 2nd-degree murder sentence, the 5-year 3rd-degree murder sentence, and the 2-year 2nd-degree manslaughter sentence, and they plan to stack them or run them consecutively, then first he would have to do his 10 years on the 2nd-degree murder charge. Then he would do 5 years on the 3rd-degree murder charge. And then he would do his 2 years on the second-degree manslaughter charge for a grand total of 17 years. Again, this is a hypothetical. So but I don't know the laws in the state of Minnesota. I don't know how they do things. I know that they have sentencing guidelines. And for somebody who is I know they have sentencing guidelines up there. And from what I have read, if someone has not been convicted, has never had any contact with the criminal justice system there in Minnesota, there are certain recommendations by statute that are recommended. So I believe it was, I think for the third degree murder charge, it might be second degree manslaughter. I forget where it's saying, yeah, but never been in trouble before. We recommend 12, right? For 12 years, even though it has a max of this, we recommend 12 and a half for people who have never been in trouble before, right? So I don't know all the ins and outs because did I tell y'all I'm not licensed in Minnesota? I don't know what's going on up there. I don't know. I am licensed in Oklahoma, but I know the criminal justice game. I know the criminal defense game. And so I don't know what the law is up there, but typically in many jurisdictions, you can run things consecutively. So all these news stories that I'm reading where they're saying Mr. Chauvin could spend up to 40 years in prison. I don't know the law up there, but typically that allows them to stack. So if they give him the max on second degree murder and third degree murder and second degree manslaughter, what are you looking at? 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, we're looking at 75 years, right? If they decide to stack those cases, right? Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. But my next question, if it's not stacked against him and they go the other route, could he possibly still serve a lesser sentence far as good behavior? If he was saying, hey, you did this correct, you did this, you're in good standing, could he serve a lesser sentence?
And so, that is possible. It depends upon, I know people are, what, Lorenzo, what? Hold on, wait a minute, hold up, slow your roll. It is all dependent upon Minnesota law, which I don't know all the ins and outs, right? I'm not licensed up there. But I will tell you, the analog here in Oklahoma is, even though you get a 10-year sentence on certain types of crimes, you may not serve that whole 10-year sentence. You may only serve a third of it, right? You may only do 3.5 years or so and then come out. But then there are certain crimes here in the state of Oklahoma that are what we call 85%ers that say, no, before you ever get out of prison, you must complete 85% of the time that you have been sentenced to. So my assumption is that Minnesota has similar, right? I don't know. And for Oklahoma, most violent crimes are considered 85% crimes, which means don't even try it. Don't even think about trying to get paroled or coming up on good time and all of that, right? Good behavior. All of that is null and void until you complete 85% of your sentence in the state of Oklahoma. My assumption is that Minnesota has similar laws up there, but I'm not sure. So to answer your question, sorry, I told you, Tina, you should have been ready. Long answer to a short question. I told you, sis. I told you I was going to do it. But I told you, I warned you. So, but yes, it is very plausible that he could, in fact, end up doing less than the time that he's been sentenced, depending upon Minnesota law. We don't know that.
Okay, great. You had answered my question about the sentencing already. My question would be, as an attorney and as a Black attorney, would you have represented Derek in this case? And how would you have represented him? Right. And also, this is a 2-question. Even the representation of the family, how would you have represented the family as well as an attorney? And again, would you have represented Derek in such circumstances?
Right. And so the joy of being in private practice and owning my own law firm is that I have the ability to say no, right? People come in my office, hey, God bless you, that you deserve a fair, right, constitutionally protected defense, I am just not the lawyer for you. I more than likely would have told Mr. Chauvin and his family, I'm just not the lawyer for you, right? I've watched the video. This just does not make me feel good. However, as a Black lawyer, so I wear two hats, Tina. On one hand, as a Black man in the community, I say, nah, Mr. Chauvin, that was awful, right? I have, I just so happen to look like George Floyd, right? I'm a little shorter, a little more light skinned, but that's neither here nor there, right? But he's a Black man just like I am. And so on one hand, I say, no, sir, that was awful. Right. No justification for that. You should rot under a jail for that. Now, that's me taking off my Black male hat, and now I'm going to be a colorless lawyer. I'm putting on my lawyer hat, who's objective, and I'm not influenced by my race, my background, my age, none of that. Strictly the law. The law says that as evil and as horrible as what is seemed to be that Derek Chauvin is, he is afforded and should be constitutionally, he must get a fair trial, and he should get a vigorous defense from competent counsel. And we must preserve that lest we descend into chaos, right? And we don't get consistent outcomes in cases. The whole idea is we are shooting for perfection in the criminal justice system. Are we going to get there? No, we're human and we are inherently flawed. But it's our effort in perfection that is the driving force behind what it is to be in America. The idea that all things, when they go into the criminal justice system, should turn out about the same, depending on if similar circumstances should have similar outcomes. And in this case, it appears, based upon the evidence that was presented, it appears that the criminal justice system worked the way it should have, right? But regardless of that, Mr. Chauvin should have had the best lawyers that were available to him and have a constitutionally protected, vigorous defense. And he did. So going back to your question, first of all, would I have represented him? No. Then it looks like you did. Sorry, because I'm a law professor too, folks. I'm a law professor at Oklahoma City University School of Law. So the law professor is coming out of me. I can't help it. So that was the first part of your question. What you had an underlying question is a part A to your question, which is, if you did represent him, how would you have represented him? Mm-hmm. I don't think I could have done any different or better than these defense attorneys did for Mr. Chauvin. They put on a heck of a trial, considering the evidence stacked against them, right? I just don't know what else you can do with that. You've got video, you've got damning testimony from folks who were witnesses around, the paramedic. Oh, it's really hard to overcome such strong evidence against Mr. Chauvin. Under the circumstances, I just don't know if I could have done any better or anything different. I applaud these defense attorneys. They had a heck of a job to do. And although they were not successful, they put on the very best trial that they could under the circumstances. Mr. Chauvin got his constitutionally protected, vigorous criminal defense.
Okay, and so this goes to the other question that I asked about the representation for his family. Mr.
Right. And so, for every case like this, there's oftentimes a civil case that goes along with it, right? And I know because I've even done some of these civil cases, right? These civil rights cases where we've got officers who have, in fact, committed some type of misconduct. And now the police department, the city, whatever political subdivision that supervises this police department now needs to be sued based upon the misconduct, the actions of this officer. And the Floyd family's lawyers are doing what they can to try to, and have done what they can to get justice on the civil side for the Floyd family. When I do things, when I've done these civil rights cases of some sort, I do my best. This is just my style. My style is very low key. My style is very discreet. I usually do things in the courtroom. That's how I do things. I'm not saying any other way is bad or wrong. That's just the way I do things, right? So I'm not much for media. I'm not much for camera time when it comes to these, because these families have already been dragged through one of the roughest times in their lives.
Yes.
I really don't want the media in their face. I want to keep the media out of their face as much as possible, and let them heal and let me do the battle in the courtroom. That's Lorenzo Banks's style. That's how I do it. I try to protect my families from the media, because that can certainly be very, very, you can't tell me that that's not stressful. And, and this is just my style too. Oftentimes people say, well, Lorenzo, they need somebody to speak for them. No, they don't. There's no mandate to speak to the press, right? When families speak to the press, it's because they want to, and there's nothing wrong with that either. But for me and my clients, when I have this type of case, we're very low key. We do our fighting in the courtroom, not so much in front of the camera. That's just my style. I'm not knocking anybody else's style. All right, hang on, folks out there, Facebook Live land, and I'm sure this is going to get spread. Oh, Lorenzo Banks was talking noise. That's not what I was saying. I'm saying, she asked me, how would I do it? I'm a bit more low key, a bit more discreet about mine.
Thank you for answering that question. I believe the community and nationwide, people had stepped up to the plate and actually was the voice for that family, and many other people that has suffered through violence from the police officer. There's definitely been a movement. That is one of the reasons why we have started Youre Safe With Me, is because God had given Lucretia this word, those words, you're safe with me, because she is a mother of 4 amazing sons. And even with myself, I'm a mother now of a son, but I have 4 daughters. And when this situation happened, I never took the time to really sit back and say, I felt like I had to tell my daughters, hey, when the police come up on you or pull up behind you, you need to do this, put your hands up on the wheel, teaching them safety protocol. I didn't feel like I had to teach them that. But now that I have a son, and I'm going to share an incident with you too, that happened. Araya, I have a daughter named Araya, and my son's name, we call him Z. They were playing police officers because my son, he wants to be a police officer. And last week he was like, Mom, do you know what I want to be when I grow up? I want you to guess. And I was like, what, son? And I guessed all these other things. And then I said a police officer, because he's been saying it ever since he was able to talk. But anyway, him and Araya is playing police, police and robber, or police and a bad guy. And this was a time when the situation with George Floyd had happened. The 2 of them was running through the house and was playing. And one of my daughters said, stop. She yelled out real loud, like in a frantic, and she was scared. And she was like, stop. Don't run from the police. Here it is, 4 years old. And at 4 years old, it really breaks my heart to know that my daughters are having to teach their brother at 4 years old not to run from the police officers, which is something that I didn't have to do with them as being women. And I know that you have daughters. Do you have to teach your daughters, or have you had the conversation with them about protocol when police officers pull them over? Because it's like, I don't have those conversations, or I haven't had those conversations with them. But I know that women are also being shot by police. It's not on the level of men, but they are facing some situations where they have to, or have had altercations with police officers.
Yes, ma'am. So, and I believe the question was, have I had these conversations with my daughters? Is that your question? Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay. So, yes, but very, very, and this is in all honesty, very, 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 very brief compared to the conversations that I have with young men. I hate to say it. that although there are some women getting shot, right, especially brown and black women, it happens clearly, right? There are certainly these deadly or semi-deadly interactions with police officers and brown and black women. But by and large, the most of these encounters that are deadly or violent in any way, they tend to be with black and brown men. And so, not to say that I don't care or that I'm flippant about my daughter's safety. No, we have this conversation. Hey, baby, when you get pulled over, keep your hands visible and, keep your hands visible, speak calmly, and be respectful, right? You want that officer to respect you, then give the same energy you want, right? So I've had those conversations, but not nearly with the same urgency that I have when I'm speaking with black and brown men, because let's just be real, there is a certain fear factor about black and brown men, right? Black and brown women, they may be discriminated against when it comes to police stops, but the fear factor tends to not be as strong as it is with the males, right? There's certainly something about a black male at night that seems to cause some type of fear in the hearts of those who don't fully understand us or who are not fully educated about who we are as a people. It's because of that when I'm out doing this Know Your Rights talk, much of my audience, and I'm not discriminating against ladies, please come out. We need you. Okay, we need you to teach this to yourself, your friends, your daughters. Right? We need ladies out. But most of my Know Your Rights talks tend to be mostly men, because it's by and large mostly men who end up having these type of encounters with police officers. And so it's certainly something that we are working on changing. This needs to stop, and and it might be a cultural thing. And here's an example, right? Now, I remember, and this was completely innocent, right? Got somebody who's not black and said, "Hey, Lorenzo, man, seen you the other day. Hey, man, yeah, no, I met such and such. Oh, who'd you meet? Okay, yeah, no, she said she thinks she knows you, and she was driving down the street and she seen this big old black guy, and she described this big old black guy to me, and it was you, and it ended up being me. But here's what was telling to me. It was innocent. It was completely innocent. But Tina, you see me. I got a few muscles. I'm not a big old black guy. I'm not. But in the mind of somebody, like, I look like somebody's strong toddler over here, right? I'm 5'8" on a good day, right? That's it. So if I'm 5'8" on a good day, I just got a few muscles.
Right.
I'm described as a big old black guy. And again, this person who is not black and completely innocent, and I'm not mad at her. I'm not angry, but I just want us to look at the cultural differences here. In their mind, I am a big old black guy at 5'8", a big old black guy, right? So it's stuff like that tells you, it's telling, right? If I'm a big old black guy at 5'8", good Lord, don't be 5'11". Don't be 5'11". You must be scary. If Lorenzo is a big old black guy, that might be kind of scary at 5'8". So don't be tall and dark at 2:00 in the morning, pulled over on the side of the road. It's these things that we have to take into account. It's something that here in America, we must work, and we're still working on it, right? We're working. Yes. We're going to fix this. We're going to change this to where you are safe with me, right? You like how I did that?
Yes, thank you for the plug. Thank you.
Shout out to Youre Safe With Me. Eventually, we're going to fix this here in America. It may or may not be in our lifetime, but we'll fix it. While we are fixing this, it is important that we recognize what the do's and don'ts of the police stop are, such that we survive the encounter. Survive, right? Because at the end of it all, and George Floyd, This is a tragedy, Tina. This is a tragedy.
Yes.
George Floyd's life is gone. And although Derek Chauvin deserves being convicted of the crimes that have been charged against him, he still has a family. So he's got mother and siblings. And I don't know if he has children or not, but he has family members and friends who now have to deal with this. Look at the fallout, all the families that are affected by this. This is a day of we're grateful that the justice system worked the way it should have for once, right? It seems to actually be working. However, look at the lives of all the people dashed
Right.
to pieces over one decision, right? And so while we're fixing this to keep many lives from being torn apart, dashed to bits because of one decision, should we have to bend over backwards and try to survive these encounters and do extra things? No, it's ridiculous. I cannot believe that I have to go through certain steps that my white counterparts don't do in order to potentially survive a police encounter. But until we fix this in America, do what you gotta do to survive. Because although, yes, if this officer does wrong by you and you were subsequently injured or killed, people will call me, people will call other lawyers in the community, and we'll move forward and file lawsuits as necessary. And we'll probably win and get your family quite a bit of money for your untimely death or severe injury due to the misconduct of some officer. But you're dead, right? You're a martyr. And all we've got are airbrush t-shirts of you saying, gone too soon, Lorenzo. Man, yeah, good man. Another angel got its wings. When we can potentially avoid all of the tragedy if
Right.
we learn how to survive the encounter. Are there instances where you do everything right and there's still an issue? Yes. But don't you want to increase your chances of surviving that encounter? Now, I'm saying this, I'm sure people are saying now, Lorenzo, so are you blaming George Floyd for this? I'm not. Do not put words in my mouth. Tina, don't let him put words in my mouth because we're on Facebook Live. Do not put words in my mouth. I'm not saying that, not by any means. I'm saying that while George Floyd, along with other deadly or violent police encounters that are making the news, should teach us one thing for certain, that we must do everything that we can to survive these encounters.
So my next question, I'm gonna interrupt you here. And Lucretia is asking the same thing. This was something that I wanted to ask because you had come in and done spoke for Youre Safe With Me, and you had given some examples of how an individual or how a person can be safe. I won't just say men, but men in general are men of color.
Mm-hmm.
How they can be safe with dealing with police officers. What advice could you give us, Broken Veil, and just a community overall, ways of how we can be safe and how we can, and you use the word survive. I mean, that like really just hit me in the heart. Like, you're having to survive. I'm going to have to teach my son how to survive in a world, in our country where we're supposed to be free, and we're still having to fight to survive in a free country. And that's very heartbreaking. So what advice can you share with us to be able to take those steps of implementing those things?
Right. Well, first things first, I've said it a little bit in here. Match energy, give the energy that you want matched. So oftentimes we do this, right? Tina, you said you've got kids, right? With your kids, you notice that you get a different response with your kids when you come in. My law partner calls it coming in hot, right? You come in hot, tone is elevated, voice is elevated. It typically doesn't cause a calm response on the other end with your children, right? You typically, and psychology will tell you this, you want to come in softly. Same thing when it comes to being on the side of that road when that officer pulls you over. It's being low, I mean, keep your voice, and when I say low, keep your tone low and speak respectfully, but directly. Good evening, officer. Is there a problem, right? Because you want the officer to, psychology will tell you is it typically, because I know that there's some folks out there, there may be some officer out there who's a jerk, who no matter how kind you are, it won't happen. But typically, psychology says when you control your tone, it usually causes the person on the other end to control their tone and their demeanor. So you're cool, calm, and collected. Typically, the officer's cool, calm, and collected. That's the first thing. The second thing is remember, and I know I'll get some flack for this. This is coming from a dude who has sued police officers, right? I've made a living off this. I go around the country giving know your rights talks. That being said, not all officers are bad. And in fact, what you're seeing in the media is a small percentage of the whole. But that small percentage is doing quite the damage here in America for decades. So it needs to be fixed. That being said, that officer who is pulling you over more than likely just wants to go home just like you do. So just like you want to be, so remember that he or she, they got a family. I want to go home tonight. You want to go home tonight? Okay. So do what you can to try to make that officer comfortable. Should we have to do this? No, we shouldn't. But do you want to survive? Let's up your chances. So one of the things I do is I'll say, hey, okay, officer, I got my engine. Officer, you asked for my driver's license, or excuse me, you asked for my insurance verification. So that's in the glove box over there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this left hand on the steering wheel, and then I'm going to reach for it in the glove box with my right hand. Is that okay? Can I do that now? Do you see how what it is the officer, it's letting the officer know this is what I'm getting ready to do. So I'm not giving these, not only is it hopefully easing his or her attention, but it's also not giving that officer any excuse. That officer will not be able to say, oh, he made a sudden movement, he reached for something. No, I asked him. Yeah. And can she still do something crazy about? Yeah, they probably can, but they've got that body cam on them. It's rolling. It's going to be really hard to justify, officer, that you pulled your gun on somebody who took the time to explain to you what I'm about to do. And it's based off of a command you just gave me. You said, give me your insurance. Okay, I'm going to reach for it. Is that okay? And I'm going to reach for it with my right hand. I'm going to leave this left hand on the steering wheel so you can see it, right? In the state of Oklahoma, you do not have to let an officer know that you got a gun in the car anymore, right? Unless they ask, right? Constitutional carry, right? So, yeah.
That was an authority, like.
Yeah. So, but when an officer does ask, hey, you got a gun in the car? Officer, yes, actually, I do. It's on my left hip because I'm left-handed. I'm also a SDA license, Self-Defense Act. I have a gun license. So I'm going to leave this left hand on the steering wheel because I know I got my gun on my left hip. Just letting you know, right? Because Oklahoma law says I don't have to let that cop know that gun is in the car until he asks me, right? That's what the new law is. So that's important for people to know. If he doesn't ask, you don't have to tell anybody anything. So, yeah. So the whole thing about give the energy you want matched, and certainly be as descriptive to the officer as possible, letting him know what your next move is, so he or she cannot say that you made a sudden move. And lastly, I always tell people, because again, you're safe with me. I went and did a know your rights talk with you all. Assert your rights calmly and frankly, but respectfully. No, officer, I don't consent with you looking around in this car. I don't. Well, I'm going to look around anyway. Officer, I don't consent. But if you're telling me to get out of the car so you can search the car, I'm going to do it. But I do not consent. But continue to assert your rights calmly and directly and frankly. No, officer, I don't have to. No, sir, I don't have to let you look around in the car unless you're telling me that you're going to look around anyway. I do not consent to any search. So there's kind of three big things. Give the energy you want matched. Let the officer know what you're doing before you do it. And certainly assert your rights respectfully, but frankly.
Thank you. It was a scripture posted saying a soft answer turns away wrath, and that's Proverbs 15:1. And so, and I believe that to be definitely true. And continue to stay calm. I saw a message on Facebook where a young man, and I don't remember his name right off, had encountered that situation where he continued to stay calm. The police officers, it was 3 police officers actually on that scene. And the young man kept saying, "Sir, I'm not being disrespectful. You don't have your rights to arrest me. You don't have the rights to pull me over." He had his camera. And that, at the end of the day, to make the long story short, he continued to stay calm. He continued to keep his voice. He didn't elevate his voice. He was still recording. That police officer was fired, and he lost his job because of that individual continued to stay calm, and he walked away with his life. And so at the end of the day, that's what's important. Know your constitutional rights. We definitely want to remember that. And we're getting close to closing out here, Azar, or Lorenzo. I thank you for being a part of this. I want to say movement, but being a part of something that's great that is happening in our cities. What advice can you give Broken Veil? You're Safe With Me. That's another ministry that we're part of. We're partnering. Give us to move forward in helping in the community.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to repeat that, Tina, because yeah, we had a little bit of choppiness right there. So I'm so sorry, I didn't hear much of what you were saying. I think we got the same choppiness.
But anyway, when he comes back, hopefully he.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, I think it's getting ready to storm here.
Okay.
So my question was, what advice could you give Broken Veil for us to be able to move forward and be effective in our community?
You know, I always tell people that, and hang on, Tina, I'm such a lawyer. Clarification question. Are you asking in regard to how can we move forward being more effective in our community concerning issues of police conduct or police encounters with individuals, or just in general?
I'm sorry, because we're having a disconnect. I was asking, far as You're Safe With Me, what advice could you give us as far as moving forward and pushing You're Safe With Me? Because we're wanting people to be safe. We're wanting them to be safe with police officers, as well as police officers being safe with the community or people that they're dealing with on a regular basis. Because like you stated, that police officer at the end of the day is wanting to go home to his family. He has a family as well, and not all police officers are bad police officers. I have encountered really great, awesome police officers that are involved in the community and are wanting to help people in the community. And so what advice, again, can you offer Broken Veil to be able to move forward with presenting, hey, let's be safe with each other. I want you to be safe with me. I want you to know that you can be safe with me without my life being threatened at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, one of the things is, first of all, so with You're Safe With Me, first things first, promote education in constitutional rights. That's the first thing, right? The folks at You're Safe With Me, it is not just me. I wear my cape as the superhero lawyer going across the country giving this talk, especially here in the state of Oklahoma, but I cannot do this by myself. I need you, right? So you need to be promoting the knowledge, the education of knowing your right, your constitutional rights. That's half the battle, is knowing. The other thing is what I really want people to focus on. Okay, I'm going to get some flack for this too. I don't care. This is what, because I think this is important. With all the activism that I'm doing, what I hope is the central theme is that just talking about knowing your rights is not enough. We must mend bridges. We must fix this, right? We cannot, it just doesn't do us enough good to go around the country dealing with these encounters and then just moving on to the next deadly or violent encounter. We must fix it to save lives. Part of fixing it is mending a bridge. So my whole thing is that with You're Safe With Me, I would hope that You're Safe With Me not only promotes this constitutional rights knowledge, but incorporates some type of unifying event or unifying activities where officers and civilians can come together, right? So we can see them where they are and they can see us where we are. And ultimately we find that we're the same, right? You take that badge and that gun off of that officer, he or she is just a person in the community, right? So Youre Safe With Me can make people safe by promoting not only this knowledge, but also creating opportunities for police officers and civilians to mend that bridge, to see each other in instances that do not involve an officer pulling a gun or pulling out a set of handcuffs.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you
ma'am.
so much, Mr. Banks. We really appreciate you for being a part of Youre Safe With Me. We will be having more events, and hopefully you'll be able to join us and come and speak again, because we really had a lot of feedback, and a lot of people really enjoyed when you had spoke about those rights and felt a little bit more confident with dealing with the police officers and removing that fear. I want to say that fear factor, because I know with men of color, they have that fear when a police officer pulls up behind them, that they automatically tense up and they get afraid because they don't know what's going to happen at the end of the day. And so we definitely want to educate our men of color, our young boys, starting early. I believe that that would be a great key. Of course, again, I wouldn't think that I would be having a conversation with my 4-year-old about not running from the police officers. But we have seen incidents where young children, young boys have been pulled over or stopped by the police officers and have been detained. And so we definitely want to educate. And I'm just kind of reiterating some of the things that you said. We want to mend those bridges. That is very, very important in any movement, any thing in life is mending those bridges where we're safe with people again. We want to be safe with our police officers. And then due to COVID, a lot of people are really still afraid of a lot of different things. And so definitely want to make sure that we're feeling safe and mending those bridges with doctors, with lawyers, you're an attorney, with police officers, with anybody that works in the community, public service overall. We want to make sure that people are just safe. I just want to be safe. I want to be safe when I go to the dentist's office.
Yeah.
Just period. I just want to be safe with the people around me. And so I thank you for that. I also, and I didn't get to this question, and I know that we had talked about it, believe that through this trial, the jurors have seen something in this case where they witnessed Mr. Floyd being murdered over and over and over again. And with police officers dealing with crime and with facing things that's tragic over and over and over again. At the end of the day, and with you, and because you have dealt with these type of situations, and this will have to be a short answer, not a long answer. How do you, and what advice do you give people that are seeing this type of situation and have been involved in situations like this? How do you advise them to detox, how to release these type of situations in their lives?
Yeah, short answer, counseling. It's something that escapes us as a Black community. We don't like to do the counseling thing. I said it. I showed it on Facebook Live. We don't. And it's something that really hurts our community. I myself get to see horrible things as an attorney. I've seen baby autopsies. I've seen, I got to watch a young man die on camera who I knew, and I was handling his case. I watched him take his last breath. I grew up with him. That stuff weighs on you. And because I recognize that just as much as I do to take care of my physical body, you've got to be able to take care of your mental body. That's counseling. So I always advise these jurors who've been in this trial, police officers, lawyers who get to see horrible things. You need to have frequent and consistent contact with a counselor. I do. It keeps me healthy here so I can be a better impact in the community. Lorenzo don't do much good if he's crazy.
No, I don't think anyone does. Mr. Banks, thank you again for joining us. We are coming to a close. He mentioned counseling. Counseling is good, you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, we all need counseling. And I believe the greatest counsel is the word of God as well. I believe the greatest counseling is being in prayer. I believe the greatest counseling is meditation. And so don't hesitate to reach out to someone that where you can receive help, because we all need help, whether that's prayer. Let's pray for our police officers. Let's cover them in prayer. Let's cover our community in prayer. Let's cover our attorneys that are representing cases like this in prayer, because they definitely need it. And so before I leave, I'm going to just do some plugs here for a second. We are definitely in the beginning stages of Youre Safe With Me, and we are wanting volunteers. We are wanting you to come in and be a part of this team. You may have some perspectives that we do not have, or been involved in different outreaches or state movements with us. Let us know. Give us some advice. Reach out to us. You can go and follow us on our Facebook page. And also, if you want to donate, you can give to whether it's Cash App or anything. You can give it through YSWN through Cash App and Broken Veil. Of course, again, I said we're partnering with Broken Veil. You can also reach out to donate through that as well. And so, Mr. I want to call you a minister for some reason.
Hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. I don't know if y'all ready for that. No. Listen, that is not my anointing. That is not my anointing. That is not my anointing.
I'm an anointing of ministry because of what you do. You're helping people. It's not in a pulpit per se, but you are.
Ooh, Lord.
We're definitely ministering to people on a regular basis and giving them that wise counsel. And so I commend you again. And I thank you for coming on board and just giving us this wise information of how we should conduct ourselves and sharing your advice on, this case. And so hopefully people will have a better understanding of how they can survive. I'm going to use that word, how they can survive in this world and go home to their families at the end of the day. And so we really appreciate you and thank you for joining us. And we look forward to doing more of Youre Safe With Me in the future with you.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. No problem. Thank you guys for having me. I look forward to coming back.
All righty. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy the day.
You too.
I think I cut him off. Well, you all, I thank you again for joining Youre Safe With Me. Again, Broken Veil is partnering with Youre Safe With Me. You're able to give. Find us on your social media. Please, please, please go and follow us. And I would love to thank Lucretia Ruffin, my girl. Oh my gosh. If it wasn't for her and her vision and her dedication and God just speaking these words to her, Youre Safe With Me would not be in movement and in action. We definitely had just started our 501c3. And so we're wanting to really get involved in the community. So please, please go and donate. If you feel led to donate, please go and donate. We will accept your offerings, your donations, so we can further this message and let people know that you are safe. We're safe in the hands of God, and we don't have to walk in fear. But we also want to make sure that we mend those bridges. Like he said, we want to mend those bridges. We want to reach out for counseling for people that need counseling. And so please don't hesitate to join us and get on board and volunteer. And I pray and I hope that you have a great day today. Blessings on your day. Thank you.